the fact that both papers came out within 4 days of each other from the two largest central banks in the world, at least Western central banks, shows me that the central banks are in desperate fight mode. Mm-hmm. That they are feeling the heat. I think they're also afraid right now because certain politicians are starting to understand that aligning with Bitcoin specifically can have some very positive aspects. Yep. In fact, the ECB part, this is also, I found very ironic. The ECB paper also mentions that they are very afraid that the wealthy Bitcoiners will contribute too much money into the political system and disrupt the will of the voters. But I mean, I found it's like seriously,
it's wild.
We have pharma and the defense contractors and the financial community, which are all massive lobbies,
right?
Massive political contributors. We have, Bill Gates just put $50 million into the Harris campaign,
which was his first political contribution ever. So that they're scared, I'm
not sure I buy that, but there may have been indirect methods,
right? Right.
But
I think it shows an escalation.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What's interesting, both of those papers, under the pretense of trying to demonize Bitcoin, actually prove the point of what we've been trying to, the problems we've been trying to solve.
Yes.
Right. We've been trying to stop, we've been never-ending wars. We've been trying to stop inflation that impoverishes the globe. All these things that they are framing. They're changing language. We can talk about this, but they're changing the language from all these things that we see as a positive for humanity. They want to frame as a negative for humanity. And I see this happen a lot with governments and NGOs, where they will change the language to divert the fears that they have for losing their own power and their own control onto, you will suffer the consequences, you will have these problems, when they're really just internalizing what it means for them and then reversing the language out to trying to convince the public that they're going to have these problems if this happens. Where everything that you've told me about those two papers, I'm like, please, let's can we just go there now?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. That's what's kind of ironic.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that doesn't mean I don't take them seriously because of what I said. Because we've seen the damage that, for instance, New York Times articles can do.
You saw it firsthand in the mining space. You guys were
they
under attack
us
massively.
They still do it, and they still cite time after time papers that have been debunked, and they'll just reappear again. They'll reappear again. They appear in the ECB paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. To me, it's like one of the things that I kind of picked up on as a risk, which I think what you're saying now reinforces this fear. When I was in Nashville and I heard all the politicians talking about Bitcoin on the balance sheet at the Treasury. Sounds amazing. Numbers going to go up. We're all going to get fantastically wealthy because we all own Bitcoin and now they're buying it at $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 a coin. But I've always thought in the back of my mind, well, they're going to turn that around on us at some point down the road. You get the wrong administration in after the fact, and they say, look, these evil Bitcoiners who got horribly wealthy, now they are the 99%. And they control your destiny, and they're the evil ones now because they have all the wealth. And so if we get into a phase here in the global economy where they're printing money to buy Bitcoin to put it on the reserve. So basically they're creating inflation, which is impoverishing poor people, making Bitcoiners wealthy to save the nation state. We could be the target of a future revolution where they look at Bitcoiners who are trying to help humanity We could be the target or the finger getting pointed at the people that caused the problem. And it seems like these two papers are potentially setting that up so that at some point in the future, they could be like, see, these guys ruined it for you.
Yeah. I think that's a very sage observation, because I go back to the, they ignore you, they mock you, they, they fight you, then they embrace you. Well, there's going to be a group that gets stuck in the fight phase essentially forever, right? So they went through the mock phase. This is kind of ironic. These people are crazy. This is a speculative bubble. By the way, very common term in the ECB paper again, speculative bubble. Well, when the reality that it's not a speculative bubble is something they can no longer deny. When they can no longer call us clowns and lunatics and Ponzi schemers and things like that, then they're forced with, I think, to either embrace us or do exactly what you've said, which is we become categorize us as the evil ones who have stolen all their wealth. In other words, blame us for the problem they created. Blame us because they put all this energy into convincing a large segment of people to not join us. Like what is the moral obligation of that to the Peter Schiffs and the Peter Zions and the central banks and the New York Times, who are out perpetuating this to the masses and delaying people's acceptance of it? I mean, that is so morally corrupt.
Right.
But I believe they would double down on that corruption to then call us evil.
Absolutely.
For having done that. Because
you presume they have morals.
Well, yeah, well, I think they are aware of what they are doing. And there will be members of their organization who feel morally justified, just like you talked about the communists or the socialists. In those movements, you have probably 90% of the people who wake up every day believing in this shit that they're going to make the world better. And you have a small group of people who know what the hell they're really doing. And so I think it'll be the same way.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to undo it other than, we're out here trying to educate, and that's all we can do. And whether 100 people watch this show or 1 million people watch the show, I do a lot of these in part because of that. I think that's part of my mission, and to the degree I, as an older guy that's been around a lot and at least been through a lot of technology stuff, at least I think to some people, I have a certain degree of credibility. And so I feel like a moral imperative to be out there. And I think, you guys have a knowledge and a voice, and I think you have a moral imperative to help. I don't want to come off as overly critical, but I think there's a major section of the Bitcoin community that likes to be anonymous, right? And so there's a lot of Twitter folks, and I respect their right to choose anonymity, but I do have a question for them, and that's at some point you are gaining something tremendous for yourself, and how are you giving back? How are you protecting it? At what length will you go to protect this for future generations? I'm not talking about your kids and your grandkids, but for everybody. Because I may be blasted for this. There's a certain degree of selfishness that comes with that. Now, you may have personal circumstances in the short term because of that. And I may have circumstances that allow me to be very vocal and very out there. Like in my case, being 60 years old, having grown kids, being confident that my grown kids are all in a good spot. knowing that if something happens to me, my wife is okay, that I can say I'll take a bullet, because to me, there's nothing more important in the world than fighting for this. So I'm not saying everybody has to be in that same boat, but you have to do something. Like, I think to just sit back and suck on the teat is wrong.
Right.
And the more that people do that, the more they I think give the opposition this opportunity.
So you've heard Bitcoin is the new gold rush by now. As world leaders on all sides have endorsed it as the future of money, and now you're looking to get started, we'll show you how. It's actually easier than you think. First, go to your nearest Byte Federal ATM and turn your cash to coin. Byte Federal has over 1,200 locations around the country with the highest daily limits. Go to our website, bytefederal.com, to find the nearest ATM to you. Log into any wallet, then create an account, deposit your US cash, and instantly convert it to Bitcoin. That's it. We are the only US manufacturer and operator in the Bitcoin ATM industry, and our US-based live customer service is second to none. Go on, give it a whirl, and don't get left behind. Click the link below.